You know, in high-stakes manufacturing, there's almost always that one person, the guru, the one who holds all the keys and knows all the little tricks. But what happens when that single point of expertise becomes the single point of failure? We're about to see how this incredibly common scenario can grind a multi-million-dollar operation to a dead stop.
So meet Mark. Mark's a sharp guy. 4 years of CNC programming under his belt. He knows his stuff. But he's just started a new job at a high-precision aerospace shop. And let me tell you, the complexity and the stakes are on a completely different planet. And this is his new office. It's a high-end 5-axis machining center, and it's worth up to $800,000. The parts he's making, they can be worth $50,000 each. In an environment like this, there is zero, and I mean zero, room for error.
Which brings us to the big question, right? You've got a skilled programmer, a top-of-the-line machine, so why is one single task about to absolutely torch 3.5 hours of combined labor and jam up the entire production line? Well, the answer reveals a massive problem that plagues pretty much every manufacturing floor out there.
Okay, so Mark's challenge is basically a perfect storm. We're talking about a super complex titanium part, a powerful but totally unfamiliar control system, and a technical manual that's thousands of pages long. Let's really break down what he's up against. Right, here's the real kicker for Mark. He's totally fluent in G-code. That's the industry standard. But this new machine, it speaks a completely different language, Heidenhain's klartext. Now, it's an incredibly powerful language, but for Mark, it's like going from reading sheet music, which he knows like the back of his hand, to suddenly having to write a novel. The logic is there, but the whole syntax is just alien to him.
And his first big test? Oh, it's a real beast. He has to program something called Cycle 277 for this titanium bracket. It's a crazy complex milling strategy that has over 25 different parameters that are all interconnected. With a $50,000 part on the line and a deadline of tomorrow, the pressure is definitely on.
Okay, so let's hit play and watch this unfold the old way. This is how it works in most shops, and it's a story of delays that just cascade, all starting with one person just trying to do their job right. So it's 8:30 in the morning, Mark dives into this monster 740-page PDF. By 9:15, he's totally stuck, so he has to go interrupt the shop's senior expert, a guy named Thomas. An hour later, his first simulation fails. Ouch. After another failed attempt, he's forced to go back and interrupt a now very frustrated Thomas a second time. It's not until 11:30 a.m., a full 3 hours after he started, that the machine is finally running. And the problem? It wasn't some huge, obvious mistake. As Thomas pointed out, it was this tiny, subtle detail. The approach radius was just 1 millimeter too large. This is classic tribal knowledge, that critical bit of information that's not written down in any manual. It just exists inside an expert's head.
Okay, that was painful to watch. So let's hit the rewind button. Let's go all the way back to 8:30 a.m. and give Mark a completely different tool. Let's see how this exact same scenario plays out when he has instant access to all that expert knowledge.
So this time, instead of digging through a PDF, Mark just types his question in plain English, like he's texting a coworker. And in just 6 seconds, boom, he gets a perfect, structured answer. And here's the magic. It doesn't just give him the numbers, it tells him why to use them. And most importantly, it warns him about the exact mistake he made the first time around.
And the difference is just staggering. Mark starts at 8:30, and by 8:31, he literally has a clear roadmap. He just follows the guide. His very first simulation is a success, and by 9:40 in the morning, the machine is cutting chips. No interruptions, no rework, and zero frustrated experts.
I mean, the numbers really tell the whole story here. Mark's time on the task is cut by nearly 2/3, and the senior programmer, Thomas, he isn't interrupted at all, saving a solid 30 minutes of his own super valuable time. But honestly, the most important metric might be that last one, Mark's confidence. That's the foundation for him becoming independent down the road.
So Mark's story isn't really just about Mark. It's a perfect little snapshot of a much, much larger problem. So now let's zoom out and look at the true hidden cost of relying on a human expert bottleneck day in and day out. It really all boils down to this one simple question. Every manager has heard it a million times. Hey, got a quick question for you. But what is the actual bottom line cost of all those quick little interruptions over an entire year?
Yeah, the math is pretty brutal when you lay it all out. So in this shop, you've got 3 newer programmers. Let's say each one just asks 2 questions a day. That's 6 interruptions for Thomas. At 15 minutes a pop, that's an hour and a half of his day just gone.
And that doesn't even count the huge hidden killer, which is context switching. The time it takes his brain to get back into whatever complex thing he was working on.
So annually, what's the total cost? It's immense. We're talking 625 hours. That is the equivalent of 4 months of your senior expert's salary, spent just answering questions that a system could handle in seconds. It is a staggering loss of productivity.
But you know, solving the bottleneck is really only half the story. There's another and maybe even more powerful benefit going on here. This isn't just about day-to-day efficiency, it's about systematically creating your next generation of experts.
The key is something we call pedagogical answers. See, when Thomas was interrupted, he was busy, so he just gave Mark the what. Change this to 0.5. The system, though, gives Mark the why. It explains the physics, the precision limits, the trade-offs, and that is the difference between just copying an answer and actually learning the concept for good.
And the result of that? A massive acceleration in training. The traditional path for a programmer like Mark to get fully up to speed takes, 6 to 12 months of these slow, painful lessons? But by getting the why with every single question, you can compress that timeline down to just 2 or 3 months. You get a productive, independent expert in a fraction of the time.
Ultimately, what you're doing is not just building a Q&A machine. You're building an engine for teaching, one that works 24/7, capturing all that expert knowledge and using it to systematically make the entire team better.
So we'll just leave you with this final thought. Thomas, your expert, he's invaluable. But what happens to all that knowledge, that decade of hard-won experience, when he retires, or gets a better job offer, or even just goes on a 2-week vacation? When all your expertise lives inside one person's head, you don't just have a bottleneck, you have a ticking clock.